Hey everybody, I hope you're having a good day so far. Today we're going to talk about writing practice, specifically with transition phrases. You're going to be using these a lot in our coming unit, so please pay attention. First, we're going to talk about the general purpose for transitions. The number one purpose is, in general, to link words, phrases, or sentences. The goal is to help readers to progress from one idea to the next idea so that you can build coherent relationships within a text. And remember, we've used that word coherent before. Remember, it means to stick together. So you want all of the sentences in your paragraph to feel like they flow from one idea to the next, and transition phrases help you do that. So we're going to talk about different ways that transition phrases are used. First of all, transitions and citations are often put together at the beginning of a paragraph to focus your reader's attention on the topic. So if we were moving from our introduction to our first body paragraph, we might have a sentence like this that says, in the short story, Story of an Hour, Kate Chopin uses universal symbols related to the sky to represent Mrs. Mallard's awareness of a new life available to her after her husband's death. Now, this might seem long. I promise it is not as convoluted as you think it is, and I am not giving anything away for the story that you're about to read because he dies in the first sentence. All right? But notice here I have a transition at the beginning of the sentence that tells me where I would find this information. And I have Kate Chopin's name here, which is your citation. So remember, you want to think of a citation as indicating who is saying or thinking or doing something that you are explaining in the paragraph. Transitions and citations are then often put together at the beginning of a sentence to introduce the evidence. So as we go through this next paragraph, you are going to see how we move from our topic sentence, which you have here in front of you, to this sentence. We start with a very common transition phrase that indicates that we're going to introduce an example. And then we cite who it is that is doing the thing. All right, so Mrs. Mallard is looking out her window. One of the first things she notices is the blue sky. So these two help give us context for where we are, not only in the paragraph, but where we would look in the story to connect this information. Now we're going to use a transition at the beginning or middle of a sentence to connect the evidence to your analysis. In other words, your explanation of how the evidence supports your topic sentence. This is what we mean by analysis. So here on the screen, you see the two sentences that have already been written, and now we're going to add this one. The sky is a universal symbol for the desire for freedom that reflects her hope. Now, you may think, well, the sky isn't really a transition, but notice that it's repeating the two words directly before it. So we're connecting the previous sentence to the next sentence. So our ideas flow smoothly and we have connection. So every time you move from one idea to another, you need a transition phrase. You can see here underlined and in green all of the different transition phrases. Notice that some of them are used at the very beginnings of phrases, some are used in the middle of sentences so that you have connections. Our first example is reinforced by, so we know that we're moving from our first example to a second example. That's what we mean by when we say reinforced by, and we follow that up with another symbol. Clouds are another symbol. So I'm just clarifying again that we have another symbol that we're talking about. Within the sentence, you'll notice it represents sadness and a lack of opportunity since they both block access to the freedom the sky offers. So we have something that's helping us connect the two ideas here. If you want to pause for a moment and read the rest of this paragraph, you can. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. So you're going to be getting a template when we start working with actually writing our paragraphs. And on the back of that template, you will have examples of transition phrases that you can use. And notice that in each of these, I have, a word or a phrase that is in bold. What you need to look for here is how can we change this word so that we're not saying states or says over and over and over again. There are many different ways to say that, and here are just a few so that when you're writing your paragraphs, you can change things up a bit. All right, guys, that is it. Stay safe and be well. Remember that as we go through this unit, it's going to be more complicated than some of the others because we're going to be moving away from the career kind of analysis and we're going to be moving into just a little bit of short story analysis and short story analysis writing. So trust me, you will be fine. The biggest thing is to keep working at it and make sure that you do your best. And remember, I am always here to help you through the process. Take care.